Hi, and thanks for joining. If you're new here, I'm Wendy, and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at garage sales, flea markets, thrift stores, just about anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Today's video is going to be what sold for March 18th through 24th. Let's get started. The first thing that we sold was actually a really big surprise that we even sold it. I almost did not list this item, but it was brand new in the package and we had gotten it for such a low cost that I decided to list it. This was a 4-pack of GE Lighting candelabra-based nightlight bulbs that we got in the storage unit that we purchased for $75. Our per item, or our per listing cost for all of the items that we got out of that unit was just 28 cents. So we did go ahead and list them. The packaging was a little bit worse for wear, but otherwise they were in brand new condition. We sold those for our full asking price of $11.99, and they sold really quickly, which really surprised me because there seemed to be a lot of other ones listed, but those sold really quickly, so I was glad I decided to go ahead and list those. Next up was a pair of the Saltwater Kids sandals. These were the white 883 original sandals, and these sold for our full asking price of $42.99. We had paid just $9.09 for each of the sandals out of this liquidation lot that we had purchased. I am actually going to mark everything off this time because last time I actually realized that I forgot 2 items when I was editing my videos, so I don't want to skip anything this time. Next up was a vintage 6-inch wooden duck figurine. It was like a hand-carved duck decoy. I mean, it wasn't like an actual decoy that you would use for hunting, but usually people use that keyword when they're doing a duck figurine listing, so I included it in my listing. But it was a wooden duck figurine, statue, decoy, home decor is how I listed it. It did have one of the eyes that were missing, but you know, depending on how you were displaying it in your location, you could, you know, kind of place it so that you wouldn't be able to see that that eye was missing. So I did disclose that in the title. Usually if I have a flaw in my item, if I have room to include that flaw specifically in the title, I will try to do that. If not, I'll put the word read or the word flaw in the title so that the buyer knows that there's like further information that they need to go into the listing and check. But in this case, I did have room to include like the specific flaw in the title, and I did include that. We had paid $3 for that at an estate sale, and it sold for $13.58 on offer to buyer. Next up was an item that we had gotten from the other business that we own, which is a custom picture frame shop. This is actually an item that we had framed for a customer, and unfortunately they never came to pick it up. So we had waited several years for them to come pick it up, and unfortunately they never did. So eventually we just, you know, figured out that after multiple attempts to contact them via numerous methods, they were not going to come pick it up. These actually, we had 3 of these items framed in one picture frame, but we did not feel like it would sell effectively that way, or that we would be able to recoup the cost as well keeping them all framed. So we actually took them out of the frame, which was painful for us because, you know, we had worked really hard to frame them, but we decided to take them all out of the frame and sell them individually, which was the way that we had received them from the customer. And this was the first of the 3 that has sold. This one was an 1864 $20 Confederate State of America currency note. Now this is, you know, if you've watched any of our previous videos, that we have sold some like fantasy Confederate notes before that were not real. This is an actual real Confederate bill that was in circulation at one time. And this one had been graded previously, and at one time it was actually in a graded slab where they had graded it and included the, like put it in a plastic slab with the grading certificate with it, but they had taken it out of that grading slab, although we did still have the grading certificate with it. So we did include that grading certificate in the listing and included all of that information. It sold for $75.99. And I listed in our spreadsheet that we had no cost with this, but actually, you know, we did lose quite a bit of money on this job since the customer never came and paid their remaining balance on it. So that was unfortunate, but we did get positive feedback on it. Next up was a lot of 20 small plastic 2 to 4 inch cookie cutter mold accessories for Play-Doh. Some of them were branded Play-Doh and some of them were not, but they were like toy type cookie cutter, Play-Doh cutter accessories, but you could use them for actual cookies as well. So I marked them both ways in the title. And we had gotten these in a thrift store toy bag for just 19 cents and they sold for best offer of $14. We did get positive feedback on this item. Next up was an item that we got at a garage sale. This was a brand we had never heard of. We picked it up because they looked kind of, you know, blinged out, fancy. These were kind of embellished pocket jeans, similar to like a Miss Me style, but they weren't quite as embellished as like a Miss Me type jean, but they were in that same style as a Miss Me jean. The brand was Liuce, L-I-U-C-E, Liuces, with an apostrophe S at the end. I am probably completely butchering that name, but that was the brand. They were charcoal embroidered embellished pocket jeans was how I listed them in the title. We got those at a garage sale for just $2 and they sold on offer to buyer for $23.98. Next up definitely was our sale of the week. Probably is going to end up being our sale of the month. This was a really good sale. When I picked up this item in the thrift store, I did not realize quite how valuable it was, although I did know that it had value. And I think that it had value because of two different elements of it. This was a vintage 1980s Cabbage Patch Kid. It was a boy. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and he had a mouthful of teeth. He had a lot of teeth in his mouth. But the other thing that made him really cool was because of his clothes. The reason why he's in the position that he's in, that you see in the picture over here, is he had what's called posable action wear. So the clothing, which was Cabbage Patch branded clothing, had like wiring in it, and you could put him in all kinds of different positions because of the wiring in the clothes, and he would stand and stay in all the different positions that you would put him in. And so you could pose the doll in all different kinds of positions. So that action wear was like really cool. So that is one of the reasons why the doll was valuable, was because of the clothing. But I think that the Cabbage Patch Kids that have teeth are more valuable also. So the combination of that posable action wear and then the fact that he had all of the teeth made this doll much more valuable than many other vintage Cabbage Patch dolls. So we did know that he had significant value when we listed it, so we listed him on auction, and I believe our auction started at $29.99. If that is incorrect, I will put what we actually started the auction for up on the screen here. But I was like really surprised at how high this doll actually went. I had no idea that it would go over like $75. Honestly, I was completely shocked at how high it would go. And we had messages from people asking to, you know, buy it outright from us at $100. Once I started getting those messages, I knew that we would, you know, fetch quite a high price for this doll. So that was really surprising. If there's something about this doll that I'm unaware of that made it even more valuable that you know of, let me know in the comments below. Let everybody know in the comments below what we didn't know about this doll that might have made it more valuable. He did have some stains on him, and the clothing also had some stains, which we disclosed. So had it been in like pristine condition, I can't even imagine what it would have gone for. But we had paid $6.93 for this doll at the thrift store, and it went for $142.50 on auction. And it had like 30-something watchers on it. It was crazy. We did get positive feedback on it as well. Next up, we finally sold one of the turntables from the B-Stock liquidation palette. So glad to finally get rid of one of those. We still have lots of them left, and we are so ready to get rid of them. This one sold for $47, and if you watched our palette video or seen any of our videos in the past, you know that our per item cost from that palette was $47.18, so we actually lost money on this if you consider the per item cost, but we are actually a little bit ahead on that palette at this point, all in the grand scheme of things. So, you know, we just are not looking at the per item cost when it comes to that palette anymore because it's too painful to look at it that way. But we did get positive feedback on that item as well. Next up was an item that sold really quickly for us as well. This was a Disney Parks infant red, white, and blue Mickey Mouse ears baseball cap that we got at a thrift store. We paid $3.23 for it, and it sold really quickly for $12.68 on offer to buyer. It did have a little bit of dinginess on the little stretchy band at the back of the hat, which we disclosed, so that did lower the value a little bit compared to some of the other ones that were listed. Probably normally it would have sold for about $15, but I lowered the price a little bit, or accepted a little bit of a lower offer because of that dinginess. Next up was another one of the Confederate bills that we got out of that order that wasn't picked up. This one was an 1864 $10 Confederate States of America banknote. This one sold for $79.99, and that was our asking price on that one. We do still have one note to sell from that order. Next up was a Casper women's one-button dress suit, jacket, or blazer. We got this at the Goodwill bins. We paid 67 cents for everything that we got at the bins that day, and this jacket sold for $18 even on best offer. Casper is a brand that I will pick up if I can get it for a pretty low price, but you know, actually Casper sells really well. We have actually sold almost everything that we've listed by the brand Casper, so don't pass up on Casper necessarily. Casper is one of those things that I don't always think to pick it up, but it does usually sell really well for us. So I probably need to give Casper a second look even when I see it in the thrift store, and might not want to pay a little bit more for it, but because it does usually sell for us really well. Next up was a Jellycat ivory plush stuffed animal owl. And Jellycat is a great seller. Usually Jellycat is a plush brand that can fetch a really high price with certain styles of the plush. You know, do your research when you find a Jellycat. Some of them can go for really, really high. This owl wasn't very valuable, but I always pick up Jellycat if I see it because it sells really, really well. This one we had gotten at a garage sale for just $1, and this one sold for $29.99, which was our full asking price. Next up was one of my old shirts that I just didn't wear anymore. This one was a Hudson North small black v-neck organic cotton long sleeve t-shirt. I had no cost with this one. The way I had acquired this shirt is a super long story that involves lost luggage. I won't go into that, but we did sell this shirt for $20 even on best offer. Next up was a book called The Nature of Human Sexuality. It was a hardcover book from 1973. It had a really cool rainbow cover. We got this at an estate sale for $2, and it sold on offer to buyer for $15.18. Next up was a Nike women's heather gray vintage full zip organic hoodie. This was not actually a vintage hoodie, and I had to explain this in the listing as well, but the style of it was called vintage full zip or something like that, so it was super confusing. Anyway, that sold for $31.99, and that belonged to my daughter, and she just did not want that anymore. Next up was a pair of flip grip stainless steel pliers. It was a multi-tool. We got this in the most recent storage auction that we purchased, where we paid just 28 cents for each of the items from that unit, and this multi-tool sold for $30 even on best offer. Next up was a Nike men's dry fit indigo blue heather silky athletic t-shirt. We got this at a garage sale for just 50 cents, and it sold for $14 even on best offer. Next up was a Kathy Smith March to Fitness 1993 new sealed VHS exercise tape that we got at the thrift store for 27 cents, and this sold for our full asking price of $8.99. Next up was a women's medium embroidered crochet lace peasant top. I got this at a garage sale quite a while ago, originally with the intention to resell it, but then decided to keep it and wear it for a while, and then ultimately decided I'm not gonna wear it anymore. So I wore it for a while and then just decided to resell it. I probably paid like $1 or $2 for it when I bought it originally, but I don't really remember. But it sold for $27.98, and that was on offer to buyer. Next up was a Hamilton Beach removable dishwasher safe grid Belgian waffle maker that was brand new in the package. We got that at a garage sale for just $5, and it sold for $59 even on best offer. We got positive feedback on that. Next up was an Aurora Meoni Tots plush stuffed animal orange tabby kitten. It had the tag and everything, although the tag was a little bit damaged because it had been kind of floating around in the Goodwill bins, which is where we got it, and that we paid $1.18 for. It sold for $15.98 on offer to buyer. We got positive feedback on that. That same day, we actually got a Jello purple plastic Happy Halloween jiggler mold, and we paid $1.18 for that item, and it sold for $11.50. Jiggler molds can be a Bolo item, especially if you find the Jello egg jiggler molds, the Easter egg jiggler molds. Those can sell for a lot of money. So if you ever see those Jello egg jiggler molds, definitely pick those up. But some of the other Jello jiggler molds are also Bolos, so be on the lookout for those. Next up was a pair of men's Okabashi sandals. These are similar to like Crocs. They're rubber sandals, and Okabashis are really good sellers. They usually sell fast. These were black rubber slip-on Eurosport sandals. We got these in the storage auction unit for 28 cents, and these sold for $19 even on best offer. Next up was another Hamilton Beach item. We only had 2 Hamilton Beach items in our store, and they both sold in the same week. It was so weird. This was an electric knife. It was used, but it was in like really perfect condition, and we had the box, the manual, and everything. So it was practically in like new condition. We had gotten this at a garage sale for just $1, and it sold on our full asking price of $28.99. Next up was one of the Maker Mark bourbon whiskey bandanas that we got at the Goodwill bins. We got a big bag stuffed full of a bunch of these brand new bandanas. And this one sold for $7.98 on offer to buyer. We had paid $1.18 for them each. Next up was the Lang men's Alpine downhill ski boots. We've sold these once before. They came back. They were returned because of a size issue, and we sold them again. This time they sold for $71.98 on offer to buyer. We had paid $5 for those at a rummage sale. We did have some shipping cost from shipping them out to the first buyer, but we have not heard anything from the second buyer, so I'm assuming that they're happy with them. We haven't gotten any feedback from them either way. It's been a while since we sent them out, so hopefully they're happy with them. Next up was a Teak or Tiak, I'm not sure how to say this brand name. This was a black stereo double dual cassette deck. It did not work, so we sold it as is for parts or repair. We included that information in the title. It was listed in that section, and we're very clear about it. That sold for $35.99, which was our full asking price. We had gotten that in the Goodwill bins. We paid $1.68 for it that day. The buyer was happy with it. They gave us positive feedback, and we did make a profit on that despite it selling for kind of a low price. We did actually manage to make a profit on it, but it did take a while to sell. But those double dual cassette decks and anything that, you know, has like the ability to record 2 items, a dual cassette deck, a dual VCR, a VCR DVD combo, anything like that usually will sell well, sometimes even if it is for parts. Next up was a pair of Polo Ralph Lauren women's jean shorts. The style was the Crosby Relaxed Jean Short. We got this at a garage sale. It was the garage sale where we got all of the J. Crew clothes. If you haven't seen that garage sale, I will link it in the description box and up here so you can check it out. We got so many amazing deals that day. We paid $2 for those, and they sold for $22.48 on offer to buyer. Next up was brand new sealed DVD that we got in the Goodwill bins. It was called Otis, and we actually got 2 copies of this. This is the first one that sold. This one sold for $9.99, which was our full asking price, and we had paid just 94 cents for it at the bins. Next up was a genuine OEM Munchkin power supply replacement AC wall adapter. It was probably for like a baby monitor or, you know, some kind of baby equipment, but I didn't know exactly what it was for, so I just listed out the model number, and somebody eventually purchased it. They probably knew what it went to. It sold for $13.99. We had gotten that out of an earlier storage auction that we had purchased for just $30, and we had broken down our per listing cost from that unit as just 23 cents per item. Next up was a lot of 9 Condé Nast Traveler magazines. It was various issues from 2013, 2014, and 2015. We had no cost associated with this lot. We had picked up these magazines from someone who was giving them away through the Nextdoor app, and this lot sold for $19.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a Traditions 5.5-inch white porcelain Christmas deer. This was part of a set of 3, so this was actually just a replacement piece, but I didn't have room to include the word replacement. But it, you know, could also be a standalone piece, so I just kind of listed it with the description of what it was. We had gotten this in the most recent storage auction purchase that we had made, and we paid 28 cents for that. It sold for $11.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was another item we got out of that same storage auction unit. This one was a Aurora Borealis rhinestone brooch. Aurora Borealis is the way you describe this kind of iridescent look that has like that multifaceted. So it's like a clear stone, but when you turn it in the light at different angles, you see like the different colors reflected in the light. That's what the Aurora Borealis is referring to. So that's what that description is. So it did have like a little bit of darkening in one of the stones up at the top. That's what the reed is referring to. But we had gotten that out of the most recent storage auction that we purchased, so our cost was 28 cents, and that brooch sold for $19.48. And sometimes those Aurora Borealis pins can go for quite a lot. So if you ever see one that looks like that, I would recommend probably picking it up. It's probably worth it. And that wraps up our sales for the week of March 18th through 24th. We did not sell any cards this week, which is so weird. We always at least typically sell 1 card, but we did not even sell 1 single card this week. But this was a really good week for us. Sales were way, way up, and we sold like 3 high dollar items. So this week like really turned it around for us. And we had a comment last week or the week before that hopefully people would be using their tax return to pay for items, and I think that's probably what happened here. People got their tax refund and bought a bunch of items from us, or, you know, maybe we just had a bunch of good new stuff listed. I don't know. But all I know is that I want every week to be like this, and hopefully this is a sign of good things to come for the future. So if you enjoyed this video, let us know by hitting the like button. Leave us a comment below on what your favorite item was that we sold this week. And if you're not already subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bells turned on so you can be kept informed of all of our latest content. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you on the flip side. Bye.